Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we have been reading from Bhagavad-Gita. So today we will read from chapter 4, text 1. So this is the opening verse of 4th chapter, which is entitled as Transcendental Knowledge. śrī-bhagavān uvāca imaṁ vivasvate yogam proktavān aham avyayam Vivasvān manave prāha manur ikṣvākave bravīt. Word-to-word meaning, translation and purport given by His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. śrī-bhagavān uvāca. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, imam, this, vivasvate, unto the Sun God, yogam, the signs of one's relationship to the Supreme, proktavān, Vivasvān, the Sun God, proktavān, instructed, aham, I, avyayam, imperishable, Vivasvān, the Sun God's name, manave, unto the Father of mankind, of the name Vaivasvata, prāha, told, Manu, the Father of mankind, ikṣvākave, unto King Ikṣvāku, abravīt, said. The personality of Godhead said, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the Sun God, Vivasvān. And Vivasvān instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikṣvāku. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupada. Herein we find the history of the Bhagavad-Gita traced from a remote time when it was delivered to the royal order of all planets, beginning from the Sun planet. The kings of all planets are specially meant for the protection of the inhabitants. And therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad-Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. So this is a very important point, and therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad-Gita in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. Human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge in eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens by education, culture and devotion. In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of Krishna consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life. In the millennium, the Sun God is known as Vivasvān, the king of the sun, which is the origin of all planets within the solar system. In the Brahma Samhita 5.52, it is stated, यच्चक्षुरेश सविता सकल ग्रहाणाम राजा समस्त सुर मूर्तिर अशेष तेजा यस्याज्ञया भ्रमति संवृत काल चक्रो गोविंदम आदि पुरुषम तमहम भजामि. Let me worship, Lord Brahma said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and traverses its orbit in obedience to his father. The sun is the king of the planets, and the sun god at present of the name Vivasvān rules the sun planet, which is controlling all other planets by supplying heat and light. He is rotating under the order of Krishna, and Lord Krishna originally made Vivasvān his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad-Gita. The Gita is not therefore a speculative treatise for the insignificant mundane scholar, but is a standard book of knowledge coming down from time immemorial. In the Mahabharata Shanti Parva 348, 51 to 52, we can trace out the history of the Gita as follows. Treta yugado chatato vivasvān manavedado manushchaloka pratyartham sutakshevake tado ikṣvākuna cha katito vyapyalokan avastita. In the beginning of the millennium known as Treta Yuga, the science of the relationship with the Supreme was delivered by Vivasvān to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son Maharaj Ikṣvāku, the king of this earth planet and forefather of the Raghu dynasty, in which Lord Ramachandra appeared. Therefore, Bhagavad-Gita existed in human society from the time of Maharaj Ikṣvāku. At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which lasts 4,32,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, 800,000 years, and therefore that there was Treta Yuga, 1,200,000 years. Thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad-Gita to his disciple and son Maharaj Ikṣvāku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,000,000 years, of which 120,000,004,100 years have passed. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivasvān. A rough estimate is that the Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago, and in human society it has been extant for 2 million years. It was re-spoken by the Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. That is the rough estimate of the history of the Gita. According to the Gita itself and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, it was spoken to the sun god Vivasvān because he is also a Kshatriya and is the father of all Kshatriyas who are descendants of the sun god or the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas. Because Bhagavad Gita is as good as the Vedas, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This knowledge is apaurushaya, superhuman. Since the Vedic instructions are accepted as they are, without human interpretation, the Gita must therefore be accepted without mundane interpretation. The mundane wranglers may speculate on the Gita in their own ways, but that is not Bhagavad Gita as it is. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita has to be accepted as it is from the disciplic succession. And it is described herein that the Lord spoke to the sun god, and the sun god spoke to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ikṣvāku. Om ajnānatimirandhasya jnānāñjanam shalakaya chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai Śrī Guruvai namaha Śrī Chaitanya manobhistam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kada mahyam dadati swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanavatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvatamscha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namine Namaste Saraswate Devye Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatpadeshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratrishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishbhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sandubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langite girim yat kripatam ham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Kathanchana smrite asmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet vismrite viparitam sat Shri Chaitanya Hare Krishna. So this is the opening verse of 4th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, and this chapter is entitled as Transcendental Knowledge. It's like the name itself suggests. In Hindi it is called Divyajnana. Like every morning in Guru Puja we also sing Divyajnana Hriday Prakashita. So Divyajnana means like this is not an ordinary knowledge which is subject to the 3 modes of nature, but this knowledge is something which is beyond 3 modes of nature. Or in essence, that is why Krishna is saying yoga of the Supreme. Just like imperishable. The word is used imperishable because we know that like the matter is subject to perish, but the spirit is not subject to be perish. Soul can never be destroyed. Na jayate mrete va kadachan na bhutva bhavatam nainam chindanti shastrani. There is one more chapter, that is the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. That is also entitled, that also talks about knowledge. That is called absolute knowledge. And there is also one more chapter, there is 9th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. That is called the most confidential knowledge. So here Krishna is actually saying this is called Guhya, confidential knowledge, more confidential knowledge, and the most confidential knowledge. So in the chapter 4, actually Krishna is speaking about the confidential knowledge. Why confidential knowledge? Because this knowledge helps a living entity in understanding his relationship with the Supreme. And unless and until one understands the relationship with the Supreme, human form of life is simply a waste. Because if there is no sambandh jnana, there is no progress. One of the first thing we learn in Krishna consciousness that Jivera Swarupa hai Krishnera Nitya Das. Then everything begins. One of the first thing is taught to us that we are the servant of Krishna. Our identity is that in all phases of our life, we are simply a servant. And if you remember this thing, then life is really blissful. And that's how, we have 3 principal deities. One is called Shri Radha Madan Mohan, and then Shri Radha Govinda Dev, and Shri Radha Gopinath Ji. And they are called respectively Sambandh Vigraha, and then Abhideya Vigraha, and then Prayojana Vigraha. And interestingly, that the Sambandh Vigraha is Radha Madan Mohan. So why Radha Madan Mohan is Sambandh Vigraha? Because the relationship with Krishna just ended, 3rd chapter with this verse. Evam buddhe param buddhva samsthabhyatmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahabha kama rupam durasa. What is the deadliest enemy of the living entity in this world? That is kama. The attraction for the opposite gender. This is the kama which is the binding factor for a living entity into this material world. Krishna is saying this is the lust, O Arjuna, which is binding a living entity into this material world. And it is covering the knowledge of a pure living entity. Because soul by nature is pure. Because it is part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is called Shuddham Apapa Viddham. Krishna is the purest of pure. So if anything which is part and parcel of Krishna, naturally it is a pure. Soul by nature is pure, because spirit can never be contaminated. But how the spirits get contaminated? Through misidentification. And from where this misidentification starts, the moment a living entity desire to lord it over this world, desire to enjoy the facilities of this world, or in simple word, desire to be the lord of the world, then he comes under the grip of lust, kama. So because of that, what happens? His knowledge is covered. And when the pure living entity's knowledge is covered, then the living entity becomes attached to this world. And the more the living entity becomes attached to this world, then his punishment just goes on and on and on and on and on. And this is how the bondage is created actually. So what is Krishna's recommendation in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad-Gita? That, O Arjuna, that you defeat, does the knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. And that is why the opening of this chapter with this was transcendental knowledge. That know who you are. Indriyani paranyahur indriyabhya paramana manasastu para buddhiriyo buddhe parta. The soul is above even intelligence. Senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is superior to senses. And intelligence is higher than mind. Then who is higher than intelligence? It is the soul. So when you strengthen your spiritual intelligence, certainly Arjuna, you can defeat this deadliest enemy, which is the enemy of the soul, that is lust. But for that, there is a need to be enlightened. There is a need, a knowledge to be given. But what kind of knowledge? Ordinary knowledge, which can be acquired in universities. Material knowledge? No, it's a transcendental knowledge. Knowledge which is beyond 3 modes of nature. Now who can give that knowledge? The one who is beyond 3 modes of nature. Now who is beyond 3 modes of nature? That is Adhokshaja. So one of the name of the Lord is Adhokshaja, Adha Akshaja. Because you cannot see that through your material blunt senses. Atha Śrī Kṛṣṇam namadi na bhaved grahyam indriye sevon mukhehi jivhado swayameva svaratyada. The Krishna's name, pastimes, activities, they all are transcendentals. They cannot be understood by this blunt material senses, because it is beyond 3 modes of nature. And that is why in the opening of this verse, the title is used for the Lord is śrī-bhagavān uvāca. Who is speaking this knowledge? śrī-bhagavān uvāca. The knowledge is directly coming from the one who is beyond 3 modes of nature, or who is transcendental, or who is apaurushaya. One of the name of the Lord is apaurushaya. Why apaurushaya? Because ordinary living entity is subject to 4 defects. That is called Brahma, Pramad, Karna Patav and Vipralipsa. The living entity, ordinary living entity, senses are imperfect. And because of the imperfect senses, they become illusioned. And because they get illusioned, so they commit mistake. Now they have committed mistake, so they want to hide. So they have the cheating propensity. This is how they follow. They have the imperfect senses, so they become illusioned. And because of illusion, they commit mistake. They consider rope to be snake, snake to be rope. But now they have committed the mistakes, they want to hide it. So they have the cheating propensity. So that's why their knowledge is not perfect. But the knowledge which is coming from Lord, that is apaurushaya, which is free from these 4 defects. So here Krishna is talking about that. So he said, Jahi Shatrum Mahabaho Kam Rupam Durasadam. That this is the lust which is actually the binding, which is covering the knowledge of the living entity, pure living entity, and binding into this material world. And that's how, in the beginning of our bhakti, we first take the shelter of Madana Mohan. Why Madan Mohan? Sambandha Vigraha. Sambandha Vigraha. Which reminds us what is our actual position, that we are not the servant of our senses, but we are the servant of Krishna. And that's the definition of bhakti. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So this Madan means called Cupid, which actually binds which actually binds a living entity into this world. But Krishna is Madan Mohan. He even attracts Cupid. Cupid, who attracts everyone into this world, Krishna attracts Cupid. So anyone who takes shelter of Madan Mohan, he can become free from the clutches of Cupid actually. And then he can understand his real position, and further he can be situated in his identity. So that is the meaning. That is why Krishna is saying that the signs of one's relationship with the Supreme. That is why this is called confidential knowledge. Guhi Gyan. Because this knowledge is not available anywhere and everywhere. And this is the way, this is the book, this is the beginning of this chapter. The third chapter is ending here. That how, that this enemy is covering living entities' knowledge, and why, how. That's why there is a need to get transcendental knowledge. But the question may come, from where one can get transcendental knowledge? The transcendental knowledge cannot be obtained from a transcendental person. Now, how one can receive transcendental knowledge? That process is described in the first verse. śrī-bhagavān uvāca imaṁ vivasvate yogam proktavān aham avyayam Vivasvān manave prāha manur ikṣvākave bravīt. That this knowledge cannot be obtained by speculation. That you sit at one place and tomorrow you will be enlightened. No. This knowledge is not a matter of aroha pantha, but this knowledge is a matter of avaroha pantha. This is a descending knowledge. Because nobody can understand Supreme. It's not possible for a living entity. But if Supreme comes and tell us about himself, it's very easy to understand. And suppose if you want to know about any person in this world, we can just speculate about that person. We can only get to know about that person when that person come to us and start revealing about himself. So here Krishna is revealing about himself, and that is why Prabhupada in the purport is writing that the history of Bhagavad-Gita is given in Bhagavad-Gita itself. That how old this book are. This book is not just 5,000 years old. It is from time immemorial. Because nobody can trace out actually. Because the knowledge is directly coming from the Lord actually. And this knowledge is coming how? This knowledge is coming in disciplic succession. So this is the first thing is being spoken in this verse. And the second thing, though this knowledge is for everyone, Bhagavad-Gita is meant for everyone. Sometimes when we distribute Bhagavad-Gita, we say that this Gita is meant for everyone. Then some other time, we hear that, no, this Bhagavad-Gita is only meant for devotees. And actually that is also a fact. Without being a devotee, nobody can understand Bhagavad-Gita. You may keep on reading Bhagavad-Gita. You may memorize all 700 verses of Bhagavad-Gita. You may recite 700 verses of Bhagavad-Gita, but you cannot understand even a word of Bhagavad-Gita without being a devotee of Lord. And it's a practical experience in our life. We can see that actually. Unless and until we started chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we started honoring prasadam, we also didn't understand Bhagavad-Gita. Initially, when first time we read Bhagavad-Gita, our conclusion that was that everywhere same thing is written. On every page, we find the same thing actually. That happens naturally. Because atha Śrī Kṛṣṇam namadi na bhavet grahim indriya. This is a transcendental knowledge. How you can understand through your material blunt senses. But sevon mukhehi jivhado. When the service begins with tongue, that we started by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and honoring prasadam, then we started understanding Bhagavad Gita. How we started understanding Bhagavad Gita? Because this is not a subject matter of acquisition. This knowledge is not a matter of acquisition that you can acquire from external sources through books, through your CDs, through audio tapes, through lectures, through pen drives. No, this is not you can acquire through your external resources. But this subject matter is a matter of revelation. It is revealed in the heart of a sincere seeker. To the degree we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, to the degree we honor Prasadam, and to the degree we associate with the devotees, to the degree we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Because a purity has a connection. To the degree you purify yourself by the process of bhakti, to the degree you can get this and understand this knowledge. So this is also one of the things actually. That's why this knowledge is like, is a systematic knowledge. And another interesting thing, when we started understanding Bhagavad Gita, when we started sharing Bhagavad Gita with others. Because when you share Bhagavad Gita, then actually you understand. You realize, the purport actually. So that is also like, when Krishna spoke to Vivasvān, Vivasvān didn't keep it with himself. He passed it on to others. To whom he passed it on? His son. That is Vaivasvata. Now the sun god, like who is sun god? Sun is actually a planet. And there is a ruling deity. At present time, his name is Vivasvān. Now who is Vivasvān? Is the son of Kashyap and Aditi. Kashyap and Aditi, they have the 12 children. So one of the eldest one is Vivasvān. And who is Kashyap? Kashyap is the son of Marichi. Marichi is the son of Brahma in that way. And Brahma is the son of Vishnu. So this is Vivas, and he had 3 wives, Sangya, Chaya and Badava. From Sangya he had 3 children. That is Yama, Yami and one Manu, that is Vaivasvata Manu. So he imparted this knowledge to his son Vaivasvata, which is the present ruling Manu in which we are living. That is 7th Manu, Vaivasvata Manu, and in his Manu Krishna came. So this is the Vaivasvata. Now this Vaivasvata Manu has an interesting story. This Vaivasvata Manu initially, because he was in a Kshatriya line, he wanted to have a child, of course male child. Because when somebody is a king, he naturally wants his successor. So his guru was Vasishtha. That story, that incident is there in Bhagavatam, 9th canto. So he told his guru Vasishtha Muni, so that my dear Gurudev, I want a son, So Vasishtha performed a sacrifice. But his wife wanted to have a daughter. And that's why she, silently requested to the priest who were, chanting the mantras, that when you chant the mantras, chant for the daughters. And eventually what happened? This Vaivasvata got daughter. And his name was Ila. And on her name, this tract of this land is called Ilavarta Varsha. So Ilavarta Varsha, then it became Ajanaba Varsha, then it became Bharata Varsha, finally, on the son of Bharata. But then this Vaivasvata told, how come it is possible that Vasishtha, your sacrifice can go wrong? So Vasishtha went into meditation and understood what has happened. So he said, my dear son, don't worry, I'll get you son. So he performed austerity for Lord Shiva and pleased Lord Shiva, and by the blessings of Lord Shiva, the girl child turned into male child. That is called Sudumna. So there's an interesting story, So the Sudumna, and then eventually Sudumna became young. Because why am I explaining? Because Prabhupada is saying actually, when we see this, there are 2 lines of Kshatriya. One is coming from sun god, one is coming from actually moon god. And it's called Surya Vamsha and Chandra Vamsha. So we stopped the point that actually the Bhagavad Gita is meant for everyone. Bhagavad Gita is meant for devotees, but specifically Bhagavad Gita is meant for those individuals, they are in ruling class. They are ruling. Because they have the great responsibility. The one who are ruling, the kings, Bhagavad Gita is actually meant for administrators. Bhagavad Gita is actually meant for kings because they had the great responsibility. A king has the great responsibility because it has the entire responsibility of the citizen is on the king. That how he directs his citizen. And for that purpose, Krishna wanted Yudhishthir Maharaj to be the king. So that everybody can follow dharma and eventually they can understand the true goal of human form of life. But that I'm sharing this story because actually, though we see that apparently there are two lines of Kshatriya, sun god, one is coming from sun god and another one is coming from moon god. But actually it is coming from the line of sun god only. How is it like that? This Ila, who later became Sudumna, and one day he became prince. Finally, he became also the king, and along with his soldiers, he was roaming into one forest, and that forest was under the vicinity of Kailash. Kailash. So what happened? One day, we know that in Kailash, Lord Shiva resides, and he always speaks Bhagavatam there. But one time in Kailash, Lord Shiva was with Mother Parvati, and we know that like Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, they are husband and wife, and they were into their privacy. So suddenly what happened? A group of sages came to hear Bhagavatam from Lord Shiva. So when they came, immediately Mother Parvati was not comfortable that time, and she felt ashamed, and she didn't feel good actually, and Lord Shiva understood. So that's why Lord Shiva told actually to please Mother Parvati that anybody who will enter into this forest without they will turn into ladies, they will turn into women actually. And that's how it happened that Sudumna and all his soldiers, when they entered into that forest, they all turned into female. Even their horses also turned into female, mare actually, she horses. And now they started feeling ashamed, because immediately if you are in a male body and immediately out of sudden you are transferred into female body, you feel completely awkward. So then what happened? Then they started wandering into that forest. And while wandering, the Sudum, which again turned into a girl, he met one personality. That personality was Buddha. This personality Buddha, he was actually the son of moon god with Brahaspati's wife Tara. So this is the ruler of Buddha planet Mercury. And then when they exchanged their eyes, and from their union, they got one son, that is called Pururava Maharaj. So this is the line of moon dynasty. Brahma's son is Atri, Atri's son is Moon, and then Moon's son is Buddha. Not from his wife, but from the wife of Brahaspati, Tara. And then this Buddha son was Buddha, and the combination of this Sudumna, which again turned into Ila, that came into this Pururava Maharaj. And from Pururava Maharaj, entire moon dynasty came. So this is the connection between moon dynasty and in sun dynasty. So when Vivasvate, got his first son, Sudumna, and again he turned into female. Then again, Vaivasvān Manu performed yagya, and he got 10 sons. And one of the eldest was Ikṣvāku. So in that way, the connection is there actually. So Prabhupada is saying actually that this knowledge of Bhagavad-Gita is actually meant for ruling class of people. Because in Bhagavad-Gita itself it is described, because earlier Krishna imparted this knowledge to sun god who was a Kshatriya. And it is the responsibility of the leader of a planet to guide the citizens on a path so that they can eventually come to that understanding that they are not the part of this material world, but they are eternally connected to the Lord. Jivere Swarupe Krishnere Nityadas. And in that way, they can fulfill the ultimate purpose of human form of life, that is Krishna Bhakti. Because human form of life is very important. Nrade Adyam Sulabham Sudurlabham Durlabham Manusham Janma. So this is the succession. Then the sun god transferred this knowledge to Vivasvān. Vivasvate transferred this knowledge to Ikṣvāku, and in that line this knowledge was coming. So the question may come, when this knowledge was coming, then why Krishna told that again he gave this knowledge to Arjuna? So that will come later, because it is described also in 9th canto of Bhagavad-Gita that in the Sun dynasty the last king was Brihadrath, and he was killed by Arjuna. And in due course of time, this knowledge was lost, and there was a need to revive. That's why Krishna again gave this knowledge to Arjuna. So that will be discussed in 2nd verse and 3rd verse. So we don't discuss actually. Okay. And one more point, it is said that so why, Krishna chose to sun god? That is also an interesting question. Because we know that in this universe, there are millions of planets are there. Not only just one planet, millions of planets are there. And every planet has a ruling deity, that's called, ruler of that planet actually. But it is said the Surya is considered to be the king of all planets. As we all know that, like, sometimes we also do it in the material world. People perform Navagraha Puja. There are 9 planets are there, and among them, Sun is considered to be the chief among all. He is the king of all planets. So the knowledge given to all. We can also see in the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually that when Mahaprabhu was preaching, Mahaprabhu was also preaching to the people, who were top class people. Whether they were the sannyasis or they were the kings actually. That, like, when Mahaprabhu wanted to turn entire Orissa, to whom he preached? Prataparudra Maharaj actually. So, like, when it's called class preaching and mass preaching actually. So this is the importance actually when we preach to a leader, when we pass this knowledge of Bhagavad-Gita to a person, who is a leader actually. So a greater, impact can be created on the mass of people. So that is the another, the significant point, we can extract, from this purport. And again, in the beginning, Prabhupada is telling that, how old Bhagavad Gita is that? So, well, at least you can understand that this Bhagavad Gita is at least, Kali Yuga is 4,32,000, Dwapar Yuga is 8,64,000, and then you multiply by 3, you get 12,96,000. So this is the duration of Kali Yuga. This is how the old the Bhagavad Gita is that. Because we know that Lord Ramachandra, who came in the dynasty of Ikṣvāku Maharaj. And how old Ikṣvāku Maharaj was there? He was in Treta Yuga. And what was the duration of Treta Yuga? That is like 12,96,100 years. So this is also the point Prabhupada discussed. And the one last thing Prabhupada discussed, that this Bhagavad Gita is actually non-different from Veda. Why non-different from Veda? Because in Vedas, the Vedas are called apaurushaya. Vedas are not man-made. They are coming from the nostrils of Lord. They are coming from the nostrils of the Lord. Or another version is that when Lord Brahma performed austerity and Krishna became pleased with Lord Brahma's austerity, then Krishna played the flute. And from his flute, one sound came, and that sound was Gayatri. And when this Gayatri entered into the ears of Brahma, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavya Muyantiyat Surya, then from the 4 mouths of Brahma, the Vedas came. And this Bhagavad Gita is actually coming directly from the mouth of the Lord actually. So there is no difference between Veda and Bhagavad Gita. So no one should understand that, that this knowledge is an ordinary knowledge. This knowledge is not ordinary knowledge, because this knowledge is not coming from an ordinary knowledge. This knowledge is directly coming from a person who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a Purusha. And in the last, Prabhupada is telling that, how this knowledge should be received. So this knowledge can only be received from someone who is coming in the line, which is started from the Lord itself. And we all know that as there are 4 sampradayas are there, Krishna initially gave this knowledge to 4 personalities. Krishna gave this knowledge to Brahma. From this Brahma Sampradaya came. Then Krishna gave this knowledge to Shiva. From that Rudra Sampradaya came. Then Krishna gave this knowledge to Mother Lakshmi. Śrī Sampradaya came. And Krishna gave this knowledge to Chatush Kumar. Then Kumara Sampradaya came. But that was in the beginning actually. So what is in the recent past? Then 1,000 years ago, 4 prominent acharyas came. In the line of Shri, Mother Lakshmi, the Ramanujacharya came, who is none other than Lakshman, Rama Anuja. And in the line of Brahma, the combined version of Bhima and Hanuman came, that is Madhvacharya. And in the line of Vishnu Swami, Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swami came. And in the line of Kumara Sampradaya, the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord came itself in the form of Nimbarkacharya. And they also, once again, they started imparting this knowledge to the people in general. And we also see, interestingly, when these acharyas were there, they were also preaching to the top class of people, ruling class of the people. That is called class preaching. And like now the Jagannath Rath Yatra is coming, so we preach to everyone. That's called mass preaching. But like when we preach to special people, like the president of the state, prime minister of the state. That's called, class preaching. Because if you preach to such person, then what happens, it can create a great impact on the mass of the people. But there is a verse come in Padma Puran that one more personality came, and that personality none other than he is Krishna himself. He came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he gave the conclusion. He combined all these four sampradaya. He took two teachings from Śrī, Madhva, Ramanuja, and so in Padma Puran it is mentioned that the Lord will come itself and will combine all these four sampradaya once into one, that is called Brahma, Madhva and Gaudiya sampradaya. And in this sampradaya, many acharya came, and among them one great personality came, that is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who systematically propagated with the help of his disciples to this sublime knowledge, sublime transcendental knowledge to all over the world, without any discrimination, without any cause. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So anybody who is sincerely following his teachings and the teaching given by his representatives, they can very easily understand transcendental knowledge. What is that transcendental knowledge? That knowledge talks about his relationship with the Supreme. And when one understands his relationship with the Supreme, this is the beginning of bhakti. That is called sambandh. And then it comes to abhideya. Abhideya means now how to do that. And wonderfully for that, not only Srila Prabhupada translated this Bhagavad-Gita into English language, but he gave a wonderful institution to practice that knowledge. Because Prabhupada is writing that, this knowledge should be given in the form of education, culture and devotion. This is the responsibility of the head of the state, that they should transfer this knowledge through three things. Education, they should educate people, but education without culture and devotion has no meaning. It's simply an information action. Then he gave a wonderful institution to practice that education. And that is none other than ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where we can live Bhagavad-Gita. We cannot just learn Bhagavad-Gita. We can practically live Bhagavad-Gita, philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita we can live actually. And then after living Bhagavad-Gita, we can attain the ultimate objective of our human form, that is called Prayojana Tattva. What is Prayojana? Prema Pumartha Mahan. That is devotion to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So we have a few minutes if any devotee would like to comment or share his understanding on this subject matter, please. This way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
For sure, exactly is confidential knowledge, more confidence in person.
Yeah. So it's a very nice question actually. Prabhu is asking in short, what is confidential knowledge? What is more confidential knowledge? What is most confidential knowledge? Confidential knowledge is the knowledge which helps us in understanding our relationship with Supreme. But the more confidential knowledge is which further talks about that, how we can establish that relationship. So, basically it is bhakti. It talks about bhakti. But bhakti also has two types. Pure bhakti and mixed bhakti. Pure devotional service and mixed devotional service. Because not everybody, you cannot expect from everybody that he will practice pure devotional service. Because anybody who came in this material world, his heart is full of desire. So, though he understands the importance of bhakti, but at the same time he has attachment with this world. So, though Krishna gives knowledge about bhakti, both knowledge about pure devotional service, knowledge about mixed devotional service. Or in essence, nutshell you can say, Krishna just speak about devotional service. So that is called more confidential knowledge. That is being described in 7th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. Maya sakta manapartha yogam yunjam madashraya asanshayam samagram mam yatha gyasya tachun. Krishna says Maya sakta, asakti, attachment. But there is most confidential knowledge, in which Krishna only talk about that bhakti through which you can purchase Krishna, or through which you can become more than Krishna. Nobody can become more than Krishna. In this world, people want to become Krishna. Prabhupada say, you come to us. We will teach you how you can become. Our philosophy is not to become Krishna. Our philosophy is to become more than Krishna. See Mother Yashoda, she is chastising Krishna. See the Krishna's coward friends. Madhumangal is saying, oh Krishna, you should not brag yourself that you danced on the hoods of Kaliya. I am a Brahmana. I chanted Sarpa Mochini mantra, that's why you could handle Kaliya. So, they just make a fun of Krishna's activity. They don't treat, Krishna, you are a god. You may be god, you are our friend. And then Nanda Baba, and then gopis actually. Gopis make Krishna dance. Like elderly gopis, they go, Krishna come and dance, we'll give buttermilk to you. Tahi ahiri ke choriya chachiya bari chhaj pe nachna chahre. So that is the thing actually. So that is called Ananya Bhakti. That is called unalloyed devotion, pure devotional service, which is not tinged with any material desire. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagdish kamiye, mama janmani janmaneshvare bhavatat bhakti. So this is described in most confidential knowledge. The bhakti, where there is no desire to get anything from Krishna, there is only one desire to give everything to Krishna. That is called most confidential knowledge. So in simple, confidential knowledge means a knowledge which helps us in understanding our relationship with the Supreme. More confidential knowledge helps us in understanding the process, which is bhakti. But the most confidential knowledge tells us that part of bhakti through which you can purchase Krishna. That is called Ananya Bhakti. Bhaktya tva ananya shakya aham eva vido arjuna gyatum drashtum cha tattvena pravashtum cha parantama. 11.4. You can only understand Krishna only by Ananya Bhakti. Bhaktya tva ananya shakya aham eva vido. Only by unalloyed devotional service I am to be known as I am. Ananyashchintayanto mam ye jana paryupaste tesham nityabhyuktanam yogam shema. And for that Krishna says only you just do 4 things. Manmana bhava, madbhakto, madhyaji, mamnas. So anybody who does 4 these things, he is practicing the most confidential knowledge. And the beauty is that actually Srila Prabhupada has given this in his institution. If we understand this ISKCON movement properly, and if we follow this verse also, this verse is talking that Krishna gave this knowledge to Vivasvān, but Vivasvān didn't keep it with himself. He shared it to his son Vaivasvata. So similarly, we got bhakti by coming in ISKCON, but when we simply become satisfied with our own bhakti, then we are practicing only confidential knowledge or more confident. But we want to practice most confidential knowledge, then we give this bhakti to others. Jare dekhe tare kahe Krishna upadesh, amara agya guru hoya tare. When we preach this Krishna consciousness, through this process we can remember Krishna 24/7. Satatam kirtanto mami. So this is called most confidential. Is that answer your question? Understood? So that is described in 9th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, especially from verse number 26 to 34. You can read. Verse number 26 to 34. Unalloyed devotion.
Bhagavad-Gita is a 4 Vedas. And what about Bhagavatam? Is it also Veda?
Okay. No, actually, there is no difference. Veda is the original body of knowledge, but further to understand this knowledge is divided into 2 branches, Upanishada and Purana. The essence of all 18 Purana is Srimad Bhagavatam, and the essence of 101 Upanishad is Bhagavad-Gita. So if you understand Bhagavad-Gita, you understand all Upanishad. If you understand Srimad Bhagavatam, you understand all Purana. And this Upanishada and Purana, they are corollary to understand the main body of subject, that is Vedas. Because Vedas are vast like ocean, which talks about everything. But this Puranas and Upanishads specifically talk about Supreme and relationship. And the Gita and Bhagavatam is the essence of, Bhagavatam is the essence of Puranas, 18 Puranas, and Gita is the Upanishad, essence of Upanishad. So it's 7 o'clock, we just end it here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.